I'd like to welcome you to another session of the Lighthouse project on the Zoom platform. Baruch Hashem, we've been doing this for some time now. It's very important that we keep the Torah learning, especially that we're doing it in groups, that we're all able to get together, whether it's on a laptop or a tablet or on a computer, and just sit for some time and just learn Torah together and not stay disconnected, because it's very, very easy to get disconnected nowadays. So Baruch Hashem for what's going on right now. We are in the middle of a new series called The Hidden Agenda. This is the third installment. A very, very interesting lesson tonight, very eye-opening. Before we get started, I'd like to give some dedications and honorable mentions. First, I'd like to dedicate this lesson to the Elui Nishmat of Menachem Mendel ben Elchanan, Devorah Feiga bat Shmuel, and to David ben Zohara, Shmuel ben Amuma, Yaniv ben Rina, Zion ben Zecharia, Rav Ezra Labaton, Sarah Ita bat Shmuel, Abraham and Freddy ben Moshe, Mordechai Aharon ben Zev, and Daniel ben Juna. Zat Hashem, may their soul have an Ilui Nishmat, and that these Divrei Torah will do them well in the Shamayim. Also, I'd like to give an honorable mention and blessings to people, to some of the supporters of this class that have helped us throughout the years. They tune in, they listen, they participate. For Zivug, Adonai Sifatai Tiftach Ufi Gitladecha Yitbarach Shemo Shel Kadosh Baruch Hu, Be'ezrat Hashem Einbal bat Jacqueline, Batchem bat Jacqueline, and Yehuda Lev ben Mendel, married to and Henry Gordetsky, married to Zivug Minor Shorch Nishmatam. Also Refuah Shelema to Esther bat Vishna, Yishaya Yosef ben Zari, and Rachel bat Siona Tehila, Betoch Klal Cholei Amo Yisrael. And also for the general success of health, wealth, happiness, Bachava Zachan, all they do for Stacy Esther Bat Miriam, Guy Ben Dina, Michael Citron, Avraham and Yosef Sakal, Jonathan and Julie Yarimi, and also for Shalom and Eliyahu Bnei Esther. Be'ezrat Hashem, that everyone find their success, their zivug, their tzara, and all they do. Let's get started. So I'd like to give a disclaimer before we get started, because I am not into politics at all. I actually hardly watch television. If I do, every once in a while, there has to be a good reason for it. I might skim through the headlines, and if it's interesting me enough, and I have maybe 5 or 10 minutes to spare, I might dig a little bit more and read about it. The reason why is because I don't believe most of the things that are put out there, as far as in the news, as far as in the media, and any time that I could give to be on my phone, I prefer that it be Torah-based. The only reason why I'm sort of straying away from the norm from my classes, which mostly are Torah-based, Midrash-based, Agadaic-based, self-help, that good pure Torah that we like to learn together, is because just recently it just popped at me that while I'm learning Parashat Shavua, it's practically mimicking what's happening in our current events. So I thought that maybe I'd bring it to your attention, see what you think of it, and also extract a lesson from it to our daily lives for what we're going through today, nowadays, and of course, what it means to us in the long run for the time that we're in of Ikvita de Mashiach. So let's get started. In the past 2 lessons, we've discussed Erev Rav, the mixed multitude that came from Yetziat Mitzrayim with the Jewish people into the desert, and also we discussed various types of leaders, and we compared them to the leaders and to the Erev Rav that we had in the desert to similar characters in the news today. And we were able to extract lessons from just the first, from the few parashiyot that we've just passed. Ba'alotecha, Shlach Lecha, Korach, Chukat, Balak. I mean, these are the parashiyot that we've been learning together in the past few days, in the past few weeks, and as we are tapping into the Torah portion of the week, you have to know that the Torah is not an outdated document from thousands of years ago. It's alive, it's breathing, and it's real, and it's as current as today's newspaper. And part of these lessons, the past few lessons of the Hidden Agenda, was to show that. Now, in order to really understand the entire lesson, without actually having to watch the previous lessons, because they all tied in together, but individually you can also learn each lesson. But I wanted to recap, because even as I'm recapping the Erev Rav lesson or the leader's lesson, there are new nuances that I didn't mention in the previous classes, just to keep it fresh, just to keep it exciting, just to keep it interesting, and also to add the things that we didn't add in the previous lessons. So in the previous lessons, we highlighted groups and movements from within the society of Jews in the desert. In other words, we zoomed in to Dor HaMidbar, and we saw all the different events that are happening over there. We tried to learn some practical lessons for our daily lives. But we were also able to find some similar scenarios in today's current events that were very, very identical, that were practically identical in nature or in theory. We discussed the Erev Rav. Now, the Erev Rav, I had a map over here. So I had a map, but if you want to imagine, the Jewish people, when they traveled in the desert, they were almost like in a rectangle formation. Certain tribes in the front, certain tribes in the back, certain on the side, north, east, west, south. In the center was the Mishkan. The Leviim were wrapped around the Mishkan. And on the outskirts, outside of the clouds of glory, were these stragglers, a group of people that were called the Erev Rav. The reason why they couldn't travel within Ananei Kavod is because they didn't belong to any tribe. They weren't part of the 12 tribes of Israel. So they couldn't be included in Ananei Kavod. So they were always constantly straggling around on the outskirts of the encampment. Now, even though they were on the outskirts, they constantly infiltrated inside where the Jewish people lived. And the signs that we see, or some of the stories that were shared with us in the previous parashiyot, is that we saw that the Erev Rav were the group of people that came and started to complain. They were known as the complainers, the mitonenim in the desert. And they complained about, it's a long journey, it's such a long walk, it's so difficult. They started to complain about the food. We're missing the food in Egypt. We used to have, the watermelon, the cucumbers, the garlic. They're talking about all these things that are missing in their diet in the desert. Not only that, when they started to infiltrate the Jewish camp, they began their propaganda, which again was about a long journey, lots of walking, food that they want, that they're missing and that they want, missing Egypt, the old way, the old country, how it used to be, how they didn't want to continue to move forward with the current situation. And it continued to be a more escalated situation of ta'avu ta'ava. What was ta'avu ta'ava? They cultivated a desire. They constantly kept talking about the past of how it used to be when they were in Egypt, how it used to be before they met up with the Jews by Har Sinai and accepted the Torah and the 613 mitzvot. The minute they got to that part of Har Sinai where they realized that they're not just traveling with the winning team, but there's work to this. You got to keep kosher. You got to dress modestly. You got to watch out if you're wearing wool and linen. You got to keep Shabbat. You got to keep the holidays. There's sacrifices. their menu was filled with things to do on a daily basis, and they just wanted to say, I'm out. And not only that, they were infiltrating the camp in order to convince others to leave as well, to leave the spiritual life, to go back to Egypt, convincing them that Egypt, slaves in Egypt, was better than free people in the desert, led by Moshe Rabbeinu, protected by Kadosh Baruch Hu. And how could this be? How could this be? Why would they convince them that Egypt is better? What was their hidden agenda? They wanted to abandon the spiritual life. They couldn't tolerate the 613. They wanted to lechol bechinam. When they said that they had all the food that they wanted in Egypt for free, not free of money, but free of the spiritual work that comes with eating or with serving Hashem. And we know that their first chance when they started to travel from Har Sinai, they ran away from Har Sinai like a child running away from the last day of school, running away from school on the last day of school. And they want to go to the old norm, rejecting the spiritual challenge that they faced now that they're in the desert. They wanted to revert to the old norms of Egypt. They wanted to go to what was comfortable for them. And ironically, even though the Erev Rav were not the Jewish people, they had two different stories. The Jews were slaves that worked extremely hard labor. These guys were a mixed multitude, a bunch of different people, which in a little bit we'll discuss what this mixed multitude was combined of. Yet they were able to convince Jewish slaves, Jews that were slaves in Egypt, so yeah, that's right. Let's go back to Egypt. Yeah, let's go back to where things were better. Who wants to be here in the desert? Who wants the Torah? Who wants the 613? Interesting. It's interesting that they even had the power to do something like that. Now, we can learn that famous pasuk. Remember, we touched on it in our last lesson. There was a famous pasuk in Perek Lamed Hey, in the book Bamidbar, in the book Numbers, in the 35th chapter, in pasuk Lamed Vav, it says over there, it's that special pasuk that we say when we take out the sefer. It's the one that has the two nunim. And it says, Vayi ben Aaron, vayomer Moshe, Yanusu mesanecha mipanecha, ve'ovu oivecha. It says over here, it's a very, very, very interesting. Very interesting that in the pasuk, when they were traveling in the desert, the pasuk that Moshe would say to the Aaron is, get up the covenant of the ark, let the Aaron get up, and let's start to travel. And as we start to travel, yanusu mesanecha mipanecha, that your haters should go away from you, and oivecha as well as your enemies. Over here we have to say, who are these haters? Who's this enemy that Moshe is speaking of? You're in the desert, there's nobody there. But yet every time that they got up, every time that they traveled, Moshe Rabbeinu would say, Yafu kuma Hashem v'yafutzu oivecha v'yanusu mesanecha. It says that those who hate you should flee from you, and when those that he would say, let your foes be scattered, and those that hate you flee. Who are these foes? Who are these enemies? Well, we realize that Moshe Rabbeinu was referring to the Erev Rav from the outskirts of the camp. Because we know that as soon as they started to complain, the following pasuk was that vatochal vativar bam esh, that Hashem sent a fire to burn them. Vatochal b'ktzei machane, and it burned them in the edge of the camp. Who's on the edge of the camp? There's only one group of people that lived on the edge of the camp, and it's the Erev Rav. Moshe Rabbeinu classified, he tagged them, he gave them, he gave them a classification of haters and enemy. So we have right now a definition that the Erev Rav, the mixed multitude that left Egypt with the Jewish people, was actually enemy that was living amongst us, and they were our haters. Having said that, I wanted to give you a little bit more of an insight about Erev Rav. The Zohar says that the Erev Rav is an acronym of Nega Ra. Nega Ra. If you take the word Nega, it means like a plague or an affliction. Ra means bad, like a bad affliction. But the Nega Ra is actually a Rashi Tevot to who they are. The Erev Rav, the mixed multitude that is referred to in the Chumash and that is referred to in the stories of the Mitonenim, and later on throughout history up until today, they consist of 5 groups of people. The Nega stands for Nun is Nephilim, Gimel Giborim, Ain Anakim, and the Ra, Resh is Rephaim, Ain Amalekim. Now, who are these people that we're speaking of? Well, the first 4, it's very interesting. They are Nephilim, Giborim, Anakim, Rephaim, shortly put together without going too deeply into it. These were the fallen angels from the time of Bereshit that went with the human women, had children, bare children, and they ended up being the giants. And these giants were living within the world for a period of time, even up until the time of the desert when Moshe Rabbeinu went to war against the final 2 giants, Og and Sichon, which were brothers. But the Ayin of Negara, the final group of people that consists of the Erev Rav, that makes up the Erev Rav, is the Amalekim. The Zohar tells us, Rubam Amalekim. The bulk of Erev Rav are Amalekites. And it further continues to say that Ma'uravim be'Yisrael u'machtiim otam, that these Amalekites are intermixed within the Jewish nation, and they're constantly causing them to sin. That's what the Zohar says. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, the author of the Zohar, continues to say, Halacha beyadua she'esav sonet Yaakov. There's a halacha. A halacha means it's something that we follow and we know as a fact. She'esav, Esav, which is the father of Amalek, meaning Esav and all his descendants, sonet Yaakov. He hates Yaakov, hates the Jew. Amalek hates the Jew. Now, furthermore, you should know that the Erev Rav, which the bulk of them is Amalekim, is the only nation in the world which we are obligated to kill in the end of days. We have a mitzvah in the Torah to erase the name of Amalek from the world. Now, as Jews, it's so not our style. There's no such, we're not used to if somebody attacks us, we'll defend. If there's a war, we'll fight to stay alive. But it's very, 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 very rare, as a matter of fact, only once, that there's such a thing that when we have a sworn enemy, that it's a mitzvah to kill. And who is it? Amalek. Now, we come from a place of, we're constantly doing tikkunim, constantly doing repairs, constantly doing teshuvah. There's always a chance for people to repent, to become better, to improve. Can't the Amalekim do teshuvah and improve themselves and eventually become a righteous Gentile, ger emet? So it lets us know that Amalek is Reshit Goim. He is the head of the Goim, and they are so intrinsically bad that there's no teshuvah for them. That there's a halakha that Esav hates Yaakov. There's no chance. There's no way of fixing it. There's no way for that to change ever. And having said that, Erev Rav is with the Jewish people in the desert, has been with us throughout history, and is with us today. Now, in the previous lessons, we've had a deeper look into the tactics of the Erev Rav and what they did and what they said, and what they were promoting, marketing, putting out there on the signs. Oh, watermelons. Oh, cucumbers. We miss Egypt, but we know that their hidden agenda was just to leave the religion, to turn the people cold on God and Moshe and the Torah. But these tactics that we speak of, we see similarly these Erev Rav tactics in today's current events. And I'm just recapping just to give a little bit of a background and adding a few little things for people that tuned in before. But again, we went into detail in the first lesson of Erev Rav that we see that everyone is upset over the George Floyd killing. And it has ballooned into a national travesty. We have protests, riots, looting, killing, an extreme spike in racism on all sides. Both, it doesn't matter. Everybody hates everybody right now. We're practically on the brink of a civil war of blacks versus whites in America. I mean, just the current events that I saw today, it certainly feels like that. I don't know what people are waiting to step in, whether it's, whoever's running that state or whoever's running the country, somebody step in. It's getting out of hand. But you can see that all this is happening. So many groups have jumped on the bandwagon of this George Floyd killing that all of a sudden you see, they're not talking about him anymore. They're not talking about the injustice. That was just to spark the movement, to spark the hidden agenda. They all came onto the scene because of one thing. The injustice was done for a black person. Yes, right. We all saw it. We saw the video. We agree. But everybody jumped in on it to do what? To push their own hidden agenda. Whether it's Black Lives Matters, or whether it's Antifa, whether it's the BDS movement, or whether it's the BDS and Black Lives Matters, that right now, as they're starting to tone down their talking about all the different rights that they require in America, reparations or whatever it is that they're looking for to accomplish with the way that they're behaving right now. But all of a sudden you see that the conversation is starting to seep in. A new topic is starting to bleed into the BDS and the Black Lives Movement, talking about Israel, talking about Palestine, talking about Jews. How did that get into it? Because in reality, that's who they are. Underneath it all, that's who they are. That's who supports them. That's who pays for them. That's who backs them up. We see a very, very strong tie between African Americans and Muslims. The Muslims said, we want to back you up. We want to support your movement. But don't forget, when the time comes to vote against Israel, support is back at the polls. Everybody's got a hidden agenda. It's not about George Floyd anymore. Even Antifa, anarchists, white supremacists, side by side next to African Americans, supported by an evil Jew, George Soros. And besides that, all the additional hidden agendas of, even though these are individually have their own agenda, we know that there are larger groups that are just playing all these guys as pawns. Everybody's a pawn in a bigger game, whether it's New World Order, whether it's the Muslim Brotherhood, or whether it is these weird things that are going on with the Democratic Party, that they're so desperate not to lose that they're willing to do crazy things like defund police departments, dismantle programs that keep civility and people safe in their city, in their state. They're willing to let immigrants vote. Immigrants get driver's license just so they can get some more votes. It's incredible what's going on over here. How they're holding back any sort of progress that Trump might want to make in order to push their own agenda. There's not one thing that doesn't have a hidden agenda with the Democrats, and it's just incredible. Because just like the Erev Rav was promoting, let's go back to Egypt for the food and for the lifestyle that we used to enjoy, everybody today is also. They started out with, let's all promote, the justice for George Floyd. And 2, 3, 4 weeks later into it, we see their real agenda revealing itself. Now, as many of these groups try to capitalize on the chaos in the country, more and more you see that the hidden agenda behind all what they're pushing is eventually something that is anti-Semitic and against the Jews. Just dig a little bit. Just go look into their mission statements. Go see what they stand for. Go see who they're supporting. Go see who's funding them, and you'll see that they are all hidden evil agendas. In the second class, we spoke about the leaders. We had actual people that were in high positions within society, power to influence and form popular opinion. We spoke about the Meraglim, and we spoke about Korach. The Meraglim were 12 elite men that were chosen to go to tour the land and come back with a positive report so the whole nation can happily move into Eretz Yisrael, which was the end of the mission accomplished. You were slaves for 210 years. You're going to go through the desert for X amount of time and then finally go into your land. We should all be happy for that. And we see that they ended up coming back with a negative report, and we were scratching our heads why they would do that. Later on, we saw another lesson from Korach, who was also a very, very influential man, and all the 250 cohorts and what happened then. And we'll give a quick recap of that because it's going to give us the springboard to the last part of our lesson, which is friend or foe. I want to find out who's our friends, who's our foes in this world. By the way, again, I have to say this disclaimer again. I typically don't speak about politics. This will probably be my, probably my second or third to last one about this topic, only because it's so relevant and it's so evident that what happened then is happening now, and we can learn from it. And some of the things might sound very dark and bleak, but that's just facts. At the end of the lesson, we'll find out exactly the instruction of what we need to do and how all of this doesn't even concern us, and all of it is just part of the time that we're living in, this era that we're in, and what our real work to do. So buckle up, listen to what's going on, educate yourself, open up your mind, see that there's nothing new under the sun. Everything that we see in 2020 on the news was 3,000 years ago in the desert. So we've seen it done before. We know what works, we know what fails, and we know what we need to do. We'll get to that part as well. So let's start recapping the leaders. So in Parashat Shlach Lecha, we spoke about the Meraglim, the chosen men to go tour the land, one from each tribe. And they all came back with, 10 out of 12 of the spies, as they are called, came back with a negative outlook from the start about Eretz Yisrael. They came back with an opinionated report. They came back with facts that were twisted. And we knew that all of that stemmed. How can they go to a beautiful land like the land of Israel and 10 out of 12 come back with a bad report? And we know that one of the reasons that we learned was that they did not want to lose their status in society. They wanted to keep the prestige. In the desert, they're heads of tribes. People look up to them. People want to listen to their opinion. They want to listen to their report. When they move into Israel, they're going to lose that status. They're just going to be regular Jews. And not only that, that even if they're not going to be regular Jews, who says that they're going to be voted in or chosen again? They did not want to leave that. They were selfish. They prefer that they stay in the desert rather than move to Israel in order to secure their status in society. We took a positive approach in regards to the way they saw it. They said, if we go to Israel, there's physical work. We don't want no physical work. We don't want any real work. We want this pampered existence that we're in, where everything is paid for, everything is supplied, we don't have to work for anything, everything is free, air conditioned in the desert, man from the heavens, a rolling rock. And they wanted the perks of the desert, the be'er, the man, the ananei kavod. And we see that these high-level officials from the desert that were sent to tour the land lost focus. These leaders, these officials, they lost focus. They forgot that the goal was to leave Egypt, go to Israel, and inherit the land and inhabit the land. But what they do? They push their own personal agenda, something that benefits them, not the nation, something that benefits the elite, not the masses. And we saw that we could tie this in today's news. We see how many people in office, they say that they constantly reporting to us what's the best thing for us and what's the best thing for us to do. And in reality, everything that they report is just in order for them to keep their office, to keep their position. Because out of everything that's going on, they're the ones that are benefiting from that situation. They're sitting in their pristine offices and getting those fat paychecks while everybody else is suffering on the outside. We see that. It's evident. Turn on the news. Read a newspaper. I don't know how many corrupt politicians are out, and they're shameless. They're shameless. I mean, I grew up where I saw, the news in the 80s and in the 90s. I never liked politics. I never liked politicians, but there was some sort of respect, honor. You knew that they promised they're never going to keep their promises, but there was some sort of sort of a line that they wouldn't pass. Nowadays, there's just no shame. The things that they do, the things that they say, their tactics, their antics, just so they can keep their status in society, just so they can keep their positions, similar to the Meraglim. Korach, another prime example. He was wealthy. He was smart. He was holy. He was the wealthiest man to ever live. He used to carry the ark. He was one of the carriers of the holiest articles that we have in the Mishkan. He was a leader of his tribe. He was very influential. They said that he even had Ruach HaKodesh. You know what it takes to reach that level? And he had it. And he was able to convince Anashim. You have to understand in the Torah, that every word has a meaning, or especially the Hebrew language. It's not just like English is not as a rich language as Hebrew. Hebrew has an extensive vocabulary. When they say that's Anashim, doesn't mean people, because in the Torah you'll find that there's a person that they say Anashim, or they say Adam, or Enosh. It's always a person, but each one describes them differently. Anashim is the highest level. So, he's an honorable person. And then he would say, Nesi'e Edah, the princes of each tribe, of each community. Korei Moed, that's Korei Moed, who were able to read the stars. They were astrologers. They were able to define the times of the calendar. Not only that, they were called Anshe Shem. You know what's Anshe Shem? They knew God's holy name. And in a different place, I saw that they say Anshe Shem. They were world famous. Everybody in the world knew these guys. They were world famous. They had a Shem, Anshe Shem. They were world renowned. So Korach, this influential Jew in the desert, Moshe's cousin, family, was able to convince 250 of the cream of the crop of the Jews in the desert to rebel against Moshe and Aharon, saying that they are liars and fakes. And all of them, their intention was to take over the job of Aharon HaKohen. They came with a claim that says, Kulanu Kedoshim, we are all holy. We all saw Hashem on Har Sinai. Hashem is amongst us here in the encampment in the Mishkan. You're a Levi, I'm a Levi. We are all holy. You're no better than us. As a matter of fact, you chose for yourself to be the king, the leader. And then your brother is the chief rabbi in the desert. He's the Kohen Gadol. And you start to, it seems like you're giving out all the premier positions to all your family. Why? We're just like you. We're just as holy as you. And 250 men plus Korah wanted the position of Kohen Gadol. We are all holy. And for right there is your prime example of socialism. We're all the same. But here's the biggest flaw in socialism. It always fails. And it comes with it destruction and death and poverty. Because in socialism, an elite few make it and the rest become poor. That's how it works. And you can see it in the story of Korah. Because 250 men plus Korah are all vying for one position. Imagine, there's one spot and 252 applicants. And these applicants know that only one person can get the job. Now, you should know that the way that they found out who is going to be the Kohen Gadol was through the Ketoret. Ketoret is the highest level offering in the Mishkan, and it has the power to kill and it has the power to save lives. In other words, if you're not the right person, it's not that you got the recipe right. It's if you are the right person chosen by God to do it. If you're not the right person for it, you're dead. So these guys went on a suicide mission. They were ready to die in order to get the position. So they grouped together to make a movement, but could care less if nobody else makes it but themselves. That's socialism. That's Korah. That's what you see in the news now. Communism, socialism, we're all the same. As a matter of fact, you should know, socialism has always failed. If you just want to see a prime example of it right now, take a look at Cuba, take a look at Venezuela. Look what's happening. People are lining up for food, and there's no food. People are dying, violence, crime. The country is bankrupt. They're being controlled. Their quality of life, there is no quality of life. Everything is controlled. What they read, what they see, how they live, everything is controlled. Because an elite few control the many. There's the have and the have-nots, the rich and the very, very poor. Because the people that are pushing socialism and communism are all power hungry for one position. Notice, there's always a dictator. There's only one. A lot of people will vie for that movement, but there will only be one that gets it. Now, it's important that you know that people are willing to die for that power. Just like Korach and Datan and Aviram and the 250 cohorts, they were all ready to die for that position. In today's news, we see there's a push for socialism. You see leaders announcing that everything that they're doing, it's for the people, for the greater good, to make things right, to right the wrong. And they're highlighting groups that have the numbers needed to get reelected. I don't know if you noticed, this is an election year, and almost every person that's in office just wants to get voted or re-voted in. And it doesn't matter if other people in the party don't make it, just like Korach. It doesn't matter if the job doesn't get finished. It doesn't matter if things drag or get extended. All they want to do is they just want to get in office. And you should know that the reason why some of the democratic cities around the country are not doing anything and are just frozen like a deer in headlights, allowing the looting, allowing the rioting, is because they want to be voted back. They want those people on the street to vote them back in. Because should they stand up and put them in jail and have a firm hand against the movement, it'll cost them their seat, their stature, their hashuv status in the world. In the country. They don't want to give that up. They'd rather that there be destruction and death and anarchy, just so in November they can get voted in. And then, they'll drag their feet in fixing it. But in the meantime, we're in a very dangerous place in America. And that was Korach. Now, regardless of the people that are dying, regardless that businesses are getting looted, the civil unrest, the anarchists in the street, the weakening of the police forces, the dividing the nation by race and by tax bracket, everybody pushing for some sort of wrong to get righted, a wrong from 200 years ago, 100 years ago, dredging up the past as if all the people that are alive today have anything to do with it. I mean, incredible of what's going on over here. And the division, which is the same division that was in the desert, of Korach taking the most important people in the desert, world famous people, to create division between blacks and whites, haves and have-nots, the rich, the poor, the middle class, and anyone, the educated, the uneducated. Anywhere you can cross some sort of a divide. And just as a side point, you should know why communism and socialism doesn't work, why in Judaism it's supposed to be this way. We're supposed to have rich people and poor people. You're supposed to. You're supposed to have educated and uneducated. You're supposed to. You're supposed to have both sides of the rainbow. You're supposed to have both the good and the bad, the hot and the cold, the happy and the sad, the rich and the poor, the educated and the uneducated, the haves and the have-nots. Why? Because that's what makes up the world. The world is not supposed to be where we're all cookie cutter. You know why there's a rich person in the world? So he can go do chesed with a poor person and take his money and give tzedakah. And you know why there's a poor person in the world? So that the rich man can do tzedakah with him. You know why there's an educated person in the world? So he can go and teach the uneducated. It's the yin and yang of life, of the world. That's the way Hashem created it. Just like you see all this tum'ah, all this impurity in the world, right on the exact same amount of it, there's kedusha in the world. That's how Hashem created. Day, night, hot, cold, happy, sad. It's by design. And if there's any way that people that have money can go and do extreme acts of kindness like chesed and help out all the countries that are poor and all the people that need it, go ahead. But you can't force people to all be the same. The world is not designed that way. A person that has come from a family that is very much, it's very important for them, education and values, and it's one generation after another generation after another generation, and the person went to college and went to learn, and they did 10 years as an intern, and they did all this thing, and finally gets to this position in life that his whole, progeny has brought him there. You expect him now to do all that, take all the work, and give it to a guy who hasn't stepped a foot in a classroom since high school in order for equality? That's not equality. That's not even fair. We are supposed to have rich and poor, successful individuals or people that fail, educated or uneducated. You are a product of your choices. Who you are is who you made yourself to be. You made your decisions, and you are a product of your choices. Own it. Own it. Don't turn to the guy who's successful and try to take his, and let's make it even Steven. That's not justice. That's communism. That's socialism. They want what you have. They don't want to earn it. They want for free, just like the Miraglim. I don't want to work for it. Give it to me for free. Now, you should know on a spiritual level that both rich, poor, educated, uneducated, healthy, sick, anything that you want, the polar opposite of everything in the world is by design. Because all of it happens to be a tikkun for that individual. It happens to be his purpose in this world. Some people are born with handicaps, and that's by design. Some people are born with wealth, that's by design. Some people are poor, some people are educated. It's all by design. It's a custom-made journey for that soul. We can't all have the same journey. Our neshamot have history. They have a tikkun. It doesn't work with our religion, socialism, communism. We are not cookie-cutter neshamot. We're all individuals with very unique characters. It's a flawed mentality that just a few rule and a few benefit, and the rest of the people have an identical, generic life. That's not God's world. We got Bechira Chofshit. One of the biggest things on this planet that Hashem gave to us as a gift is the power to choose, to go left, to go right, to do good, to do bad, to succeed, to fail. It's all in our hands. You are a product of your choices and of your actions. The Bechira Chofshit, the free will, is what allows a person to forge his road in life, both for success and failures. We just live in a generation that nobody wants to work, nobody wants to earn their way in life. They just want to point the finger at everybody else and feel entitled like they deserve something. It's terrible. It's terrible. The values, the morals, and the mores of the world that we live in have deteriorated immensely in the past decade, in the past 5 years, in the past 3 months. Just when we discover that we have infiltrators within our mix, within our society, that are against us in one way or another. I didn't know there was such a big push for anarchy in the world. I didn't know so many people were against the government. I didn't know that they had a huge billionaire supporting them. I didn't know that Black Lives Matter. I thought Black Lives Matter was helping social injustice for people that are really got into a bad situation with the law or with with the state. Where did all this come now? All the politics that are tied and intertwined into it. All this Erev Rav, living on the outskirts of society, outskirts of the world. Violence, people just going freely, knocking people out in the street like nothing. No cops to call because they got defunded. Disgusting what's happening in LA and in New York. I grew up in New York. I'm talking to my friends in New York. They're telling me they're scared to walk out the door. New York, it will never be the same. They're almost saying that they need they need Giuliani to come back to undo what this de Blasio did. And all of a sudden, we were dealing with a pandemic. We were dealing with a virus, and everybody's just trying to keep their health. And now we realize that there are people that are against us in one way or another, whether it's because of the money that we earn or the color of our skin or whatever difference that they're not happy with. It used to be that people were different. They would go, they would debate, they would accept each other's stance, shake hands and walk away. Now it's let's see who can yell louder. Let's see who can keep their stance on a louder volume and for a longer period of time, just so they don't have to hear the other side. Nobody wants to hear anybody. Leaders, people of influence, officials, all have ulterior motives that don't hold the best interests of the people. Look at the mayors, look at the senators, look at all the Speaker of the House. Look what's happening here in the United States and beyond and internationally. I don't even want to say what's going on in Israel. And even though that on the news it's disguised as they have our best interests and they have all these plans and all these programs and all these future endeavors that are supposed to benefit the people, the nation, all hidden agendas. Nothing is real. Everything is evident now more than ever that we're living in Olam HaSheker, where almost everything that is presented to us on paper, on the news, on social media, is a lie. And here we are, finally we come to all this was almost like an introduction to tonight's lesson. We come to this week's parasha, Chokat Balak, and we see an additional layer to our lesson of the hidden agenda. We see more examples of hidden enemies with hidden agendas. In Parashat Balak, we get introduced to the two biggest anti-Semites of that time. Balak, who is the king of Moab, just saw the death of the last two giants, Og and Sichon. Og and Sichon were gangsters too. What they would do is they would charge the cities or the states that they live in for protection, and in the end, they ended up taking over the city or the state that they live in, and they became the kings of that region. Sichon Melech HaAmori and Og Melech HaBashan, they took over it. Because they were so big and strong, they also took, they extorted the neighboring cities around them for money, for protection. So now, when the Jewish people and Moshe Rabbeinu, led by Moshe Rabbeinu, went to war against Og, went to war against Sichon Melech HaAmori, and they killed them, all the people that were paying for protection from the giants started to shake. If this group of people can kill Sichon and Og, who's going to protect us? Who's going to protect us? So they started to shake. Started to have fear that the Jews might, They had fear of the Jews' might, of their strength. And they wanted to reach out to Midian. Now you should know that this is very, very interesting because Moab and Midian happen to be enemies. Enemies. Never got along. Tons of wars between one another. However, Rashi says that it says Midian and Moab, they used to hate one another. And he cited a pasuk to back it up. That Midian came and attacked Moab in a war. However, because they feared the nation of Israel, they made peace between them. It says, and why was that? What was the thing that Moab said? Let me go reach out to Midian. It said, they see that the Jewish people were winning in an uncommon fashion. Most people don't win the wars this way. They're winning it in an uncommon way. It says, what is this thing? What is this gift that they have that they're winning? It says, what is the gift of the Jewish people that they're able to merit every single time to win these wars with every country that they go against? Or that they defend against? The power of the Jewish nation is its mouth. In other words, it's prayer. The way we pray. Our mouth is our power. Our mouth is our weapon. If that's the case, if their power is their mouth, if their power is their prayer, we in return will bring somebody who's just as powerful with his prayer. And who is this strong spiritual weapon that they want to bring against the Jewish people? His name was Bilam. Bilam was a sorcerer, a wizard. He was the equivalent to Moshe Rabbeinu on the side of Tum'ah. On the side of impurity, he was the equivalent of Moshe Rabbeinu. In other words, the reason why, and by the way, it's also by design, just like we said, you got to have, the dichotomy of, you can't have one without the other. Hashem likes to keep things fair. Hashem never wanted the Goyim to say, oh, if we had somebody like Moshe Rabbeinu, we would also had such a great leader, would have gone in your ways. So Kadosh Baruch Hu gave them somebody just as equivalent to Moshe Rabbeinu, but on the side of Tumah, Bilam. He also had the potential, just like Moshe, but he took it in the negative sense. He took it in the wrong way. And they hired him, this Bilam, to curse the Jewish people, to use his spirituality in a negative way and kill the Jewish people. And here we have a spiritual warfare. This is not arrows. This is not bombs. These are not guns. These are not javelins or swords. Here we have a spiritual warfare between a black magic wizard looking to curse the holy Jewish people. And as a matter of fact, to tie in the beginning of the lesson when we spoke about other enemies, when we said the Erev Rav, which the bulk of the Erev Rav is from Amalek, if you take the name Balak and you take the name Bilam, if you take the last two letters of Balak and Bilam, Bilam, Am, Ain, Mem, Balak, Lamet, Kuf, you put them together, Amalek. Balak and Bilam have the name Amalek combined in their names. Now the letters that are left over is Bet, Lamet, Bet, which means Balev. In other words, if you take the name Balak and Bilam, you can take those two names and they turn into Balev, Amalek. In their hearts, they were Amalek. In their hearts, they wanted the exact same thing as Amalek. And what do we learn about Amalek? Amalek is the arch nemesis of the Jew. Halacha, Esav soneh et Yaakov. So just like Amalek was out there to destroy us, here we have two of the biggest anti-Semites of that time, Balak and Bilam, trying something different, spiritual warfare. And their purpose was to destroy the Jews. And how? Against their Kedusha. Now, something that is very, very interesting. Very, very interesting is that when Balak went to hire Bilam, it wasn't so easy. It wasn't so easy for these two enemies to come together and unite to fight the Jewish people. It wasn't so simple. Because when Balak wanted to approach his secret weapon Bilam, he spent a few attempts to convince him to work together. First, he sent in malachim, like messengers. Come and unite with me as we attack the Jewish people. Bilam turned him down. Then he sent him Zikne Moab, the elders of Moab. In other words, he gave him a higher level stature people to come and convince him. He turned them down. Then Sareh Moab, the officers of Moab. In other words, he kept upgrading the level of personnel that he's sending there, trying to convince them to work together. And then he continues to say, Sarim, Rabbim, V'nichbadim, many more high-ranking officials in order to convince them to come. And in the end, it says, Ki ba Bilam ve'yitza likreto, even when he sees Bilam coming towards him, Balak himself, the king of Moab, comes out to greet him. And together they set out to curse out the Jews. And the parasha speaks how they went from mountain to mountain, and they tried animal sacrifices and failed attempts, and they tried from this spot and from that spot, and Hashem even warned Bilam not to even try to curse the Jewish people. But in the end, Bilam, he went and he tried against God's direction, against God's advice, just to show you that in this world we have Bechira Chofshit, that even when Hashem told Bilam, he had the power to go against the Kadosh Baruch Hu. And what happened in the end? When he started to open up his mouth to curse the Jewish people, he ended up blessing them. He blessed the Jews. Now, even though that the Pshat, simply put, this is a very interesting story, but you know what's even more interesting about this story? You know what's even more interesting about this episode? Is that in this week's parasha, we see that we have these two mega nations of the time conspiring to team up and kill the Jews with their secret weapon, and no one knew about it. No one knew about the Balak and Bilam unification to attack the Jewish people. As a matter of fact, this entire parasha, you have to imagine it like if you're watching a Hollywood movie, that typically we are in the camp and Moshe is speaking, God is speaking, the people are speaking, all of a sudden the camera goes off like a third-person thing and films on the top of a mountain, and just almost like a surveillance camera where you see Balak and Bilam having conversations, plotting, trying. The Jewish people, they're in a tent, eating their man, drinking their water, visiting each other, talking, learning. They are clueless to what's going on. They are clueless. It's very, very interesting. It's one of the few well, I think one of the only parashiyot where Hashem almost like zooms out of what's going on with the Jewish people and gives us like an alternate scene of the enemies and what they're doing behind the scenes. Very interesting. Because as the Jews are living out a regular day just like any other, we see that we have two mega nations plotting the death of the Jewish people. Similarly, in today's society, many nations are plotting behind the scenes. Unbeknownst to us, many enemies will unite to attack Israel. Recently, we see that Christians and Muslims have been at odds. Western ideology is denounced in the Middle East. They burn American flags everywhere in the Middle East. As a matter of fact, we know that in the final Geula, it's going to be Ishmael neged Esav, that it's going to be the Arabs versus the Muslims versus the Christians. And even like we mentioned earlier, that right now we see that they became very wily, very clever, where the Muslims are supporting the black movement in America. So later on, when things go into vote that have to do with Palestine or with Israel, then the black people in America will help that vote, will help that cause. Very, very wily. But we know that in the final Geulah, it's going to be Ishmael neged Esav, the Christians versus the Muslims. But Chazal tell us that in the end, they will unite. They're going to fight, they're going to kill each other, but they're going to get tired of it. At one point, they're going to say, hey, what are we fighting about? Well, why are we killing each other? So the Arab is going to say, oh, because of Israel, oh, because of the Jews. And the Christians are going to say, oh, you know what, we've had it with them also. So let's unite and fight them. And that's what they say in the end of times is going to be. Ishmael is going to unite with Esav to fight the Jewish people. I dare to say that America will turn on Israel. As a matter of fact, it's not so far-fetched, because you can see that the current stance of the Democratic Party and their shift of support of Israel, if it wasn't for Trump that was in office right now, and if he's not going to make it into office in his next term, the Democratic Party will absolutely take a stance against Israel. And America will not be a friend like it's been to Israel for all these years. What I'm describing would be more evident if Trump doesn't continue the presidency for the next 4 years. As a matter of fact, I think I mentioned this in a previous lesson, but I'll mention it again. I mean, I don't like to learn out anything from any other book besides the Torah, but there's a famous hadith that they say, from what I understand, the Quran has these stories that they tell, and it's very hateful and insightful. And one of it says that the rocks and the trees will call out Muslims and say, "Oh, Muslim, there's a Jew behind me. Come and kill him." They believe that in the end of the days it's going to be like that. Chazal teach us that in the Torah, a lot of times it tells us not to worship the stones or the wood. And we know that there's an avodah zarah, there's an idol worship that has to do with trees, with wood, idol worship that has to do with stones. But many times the rabbis have let us know that whenever you see religions that are connected to the wood and stone, the wood is Christianity, because Yoshka was crucified on wood, on the cross. And when it says the stone, that's the Muslims, because they have their Mecca over there. They go over there, they go around that big black building 7 times, and they throw the rock over there. They call it the Mercules, to throw a rock on the Mercules. So this hadith that they talk about, what is it? It says the rocks and trees. What's the rocks? We just said Muslims, and the trees, the Christians. They're all going to call all the Muslims and say, hey, Muslim, there's a Jew behind you. Meaning behind the tree. What's the tree? The tree is the Christian. There's the popular belief that the Jewish people, the Jewish state, is hiding behind its big brother, United States. So what did they say? That they said that they're going to tell the tree that there's a Jew hiding behind you. They're going to say that the Jew's hiding behind the Christian. Move so we can kill him. Because that's what's going to happen. They're going to unite at the end. Just like Moab and Midian conspired to work together against the Jews, similarly in the future, it will be again. Ishmael and Esav, nations uniting against Israel. I mean, it's already mainstream media. I mean, we've seen how the Arab states are against Israel, Malaysia is against Israel, the European Union, especially in France, and all this rhetoric in that building of UN. The UN used to stand for something really lofty in this world. All the nations of the world sitting together, figuring out what's the right way for the world to be. Nowadays, in the past few years, it's been absolutely disgusting to watch and listen to things that are said on that podium. So we see that in this week's parasha, we see two nations conspiring to fight and kill the Jews. And which way? Spiritually, dividing them. We'll get to the spiritual part in a second, but we see that there's such a concept like that. And we see that today's world, it's groups, movements, countries uniting to go against Israel. Nothing new under the sun. Nothing new under the sun. But just when you thought we learned enough about Erev Rav and the different types of leaders, the Meraglim, the spies, the heads of the tribes, Korach and his Adato, the Balak and Bilam, the enemies that's around us. Oh, wow. So many different types of people against the Jews. Just when you think that it can't get any more interesting, in Parashat Chukat, there was a song. Something incredible, very, very interesting. In Parashat Chukat, it says that the Parasha had a Shirat Be'er, on the Be'er Mayim. The Bnei Israel started to sing a song about the river or the well. And if you read it, it's almost impossible to understand. Because what it talks about over there, I mean, even in Hebrew, it's very difficult to make it out. Az yashir said to Shirazot alai, be'er anula, be'er chafura, sarim karua, nediva b'mchokek b'mishanotam, u'midbar matana. I mean, I can go on and on, but it really, even if you read it in English, read it in English, maybe I should, just so you can see. Take a look. Israel sang the song, "Come up, O well, call out to it. Well that princes dug, that the nobles of the people excavated, through a lawgiver with their staff, a gift from the wilderness. The gift went to the valley, and from the valley to the heights, and from the heights to the valley in the field of Moab, and the top of the peak overlooking the surface of the wilderness." What? What is this song about? I mean, I'm saying it's biblical, and you have to really learn it out to understand it, but it almost makes it doesn't fit in the place that it came in. I mean, it comes right after the death of Miriam, and we know that Miriam, because of Miriam, we had the rolling rock, the Be'er Miriam, but her name is not mentioned, not even one time in that song. Not only that, there's nothing even over there mentioning Moshe or Kadosh Baruch Hu. It's just talking about a terrain. It's talking about water, a mountain. It's talking about water. The Midrash opens it up for us beautifully. And it says that the Jewish people were supposed to cross between two mountains. They were supposed to cross between two mountains, and in between these two mountains, there was a river. Knowing that the Jewish people were supposed to cross through it, a bunch of bandits parked themselves on top of these mountains, and they wanted to attack the Jewish people with arrows, with javelins, kill them, and rob them. HaKadosh Baruch Hu took those two mountains and pushed them all together. The Jewish people, when they came to those two mountains, they ended up going over them. When they passed the mountains began to open up again wide, and the river began to flow. The water began to flow from between the two rivers, but what you saw in the river is blood and body parts. So the Jewish people looked and saw, and they said, what happened over here? We just crossed this river. We didn't see anything, but it looks like there's a whole army here sitting with weapons. And it was revealed to them. It was revealed that there were enemies stalking, hiding out, staking out in the mountains, trying to attack them, to rob them. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu, without the Jews knowing, saved them from them. And they broke out in song. So we see in this week's parasha, when Balak and Bilam are on top of a mountaintop, two mega powers trying to plot on how to kill the Jewish people, and also the bandits that were in the mountains that got crushed, and Hashem saved us, and the Jews knew nothing about it. They were clueless to what was going on around them. Both the stories of Balak and Bilam and the story of the enemies in the river show us there's also hidden enemies that are plotting against us. That unbeknownst to us, Hashem protects us. How many foiled terrorist attacks that we don't know about? How many bombs have went off in the hands of a bomb maker that is not on the news and that hasn't gotten reported? How many tunnels have gotten dug and Hashem saved us from it? How many things are happening behind the scenes that we didn't see, that an FBI had a foiled plot, or some sort of organization in Europe or in the UK was able to stop a terrorist attack before it came to fruition? How many things are happening behind the scene that Hashem is protecting us and saving us from evil? And we're just sitting in our house, we're just sitting with our family, eating our food, learning the Torah, meanwhile saving us from death, destruction, and evil. There's a parak in Tehillim, there's a chapter in Tehillim, Kuf Chaf Aleph, the 121st, when it says over there, Hine lo yanum velo yishan shomer Yisrael. Hashem doesn't sleep, he doesn't snooze. He doesn't snooze, the protector of Am Yisrael. Hashem shomerecha, Hashem is the one that protects you. Hashem tzilecha al yad yaminecha, he's your shadow on your right side. In other words, he's always right there to protect you. Hashem yishmercha mikol ra, Hashem protects you from all evil. Yishmor nafshecha, he protects your soul, even from spiritual warfare, even when people are trying to fight your spirituality, just like Bilam. And we see that. We see that nowadays the war is different. I don't know when's the last time you saw any tanks go out to a battlefield and one nation fight another nation. I don't know when's the last time we saw an air fight where planes are taking out other planes, or like war the way that it used to be. Right now the war is psychological. The war is spiritual. The Yetzer Hara is attacking us on our tablets, on our cell phones, on our emails. Bilam is alive and kicking, just in a different format, but still, there's still a full attack on the Jewish people. Hashem is going to protect you when you come into this world and when you leave this world, from now and forever. Hashem is always protecting us, even when we don't know he's protecting us. That's why when you pray to Hashem, you say, Hashem, תודה רבה על כל החסדים שאתה עושה איתי, כל מה שגלוי וכל מה שנסתר. When you thank Hashem for all the good that He does for you, sometimes you could actually say, for how you protected me, for how you saved me, for the health, for the finances, for the children, for all the different things that you can be thankful for. But don't forget to thank Him for what you don't know. על הגלוי ועל הנסתר, on the hidden and on the revealed. I'm sure there were tons of chasadim that I'm not privy to that happened behind the scenes. You have to remember to thank Hashem for all the hidden chasadim that He does with us on a daily basis. In conclusion, we see that amongst us, we have friends that are foes, like the Erev Rav, like the rioters that we see. We think they're just out there trying to fight for justice, but they have a hidden agenda. An agenda that only serves them. Just like Korach, just like the Meraglim, leaders that only care for their position, even if they're the only ones that are going to benefit from it. So evident of what's going on around the world. Congressmen, politicians, socialism, communism, plotting nations, teaming up, even if they're total enemies, teaming up for a common evil cause. Some are allies and some are allies that are soon to be enemies. Not to mention all the lone wolves, all the sleeper cells, and all the new movements that are forming. Nowadays, people are pulling out of a car and they're ready to knock somebody out or put a bullet in somebody. That became the norm in the United States. Turn on the news. It's endless. And if you start focusing on that, if you start focusing on all the negative things we learned about today, you won't have the mental space needed to deal with your life. You won't have the mental space needed to do your calling in this world. Us as Jews, we have a spiritual mission. We're different. Hashem sent us here on a special mission, and it's all about ruchaniyut. It all has to do with spirituality. The Zohar calls this world alma de shikra. It's all lies in this world, and it's all around us. It's a big challenge for a Jew to come into a world where everything around them is a facade of a lie, and we have to hold on to one thing that is the truth, the Torah. It's a challenge. It's a challenge. It's not an easy one. Not everyone can win this challenge. Not everyone can go into a place where all day, everything is sheker, and he's got to hold on to the truth. And not only that, not only hold on to the truth, not hold on to the emet, but need to actually hold on to the emet to come back to the original formula. The Am Echad, Lev Echad, the Naaseh v'Nishma of the Jew in the desert. We were one nation, one heart. When Hashem spoke to us, we said we will do, and we will listen for the reasoning later. We're supposed to be a light onto the nations, a light onto the world. As all is going on around us, know that it's not our story. It is part of the storyline of Ikvita de Mashiach, the heels of the Messianic era. Yes, but don't get tied into it. Don't overdose on social media and CNN and Fox about what's going on. It's endless. It's not for us. We have a different journey. During this time when all this craziness is happening, we have to get connected to our original formula that we're supposed to be. Take a test. How far are you from that? How far are you from being a light onto the nation? How far are you from being Am Echad, one nation, one heart? How far are you from Naaseh v'Nishma, whatever the Torah says I will do? I'll ask questions later. How far are you away from that original Jew formula from the desert? Be real with yourself. And the further you are from that, that's what you should busy yourself with during these times. This is what you should busy yourself about: achdut, unity with your, with your close circle of family and friends and community, and the Jewish nation as a whole. Lev echad, being united, unity, the secret to the Jewish nation. When we're divided, we fail. When we're united, we win. So much division in the world, and it's by design. It's by design. The Yetzer Hara knows. The Yetzer Hara knows that it's the division that causes us to lose. How much of the Torah are we willing to perform with the mentality of Naaseh V'Nishma? Whatever Hashem wants, we will do. The reasoning, I don't need the reasoning. And if there is a reasoning, okay, tell it to me later. Naaseh V'Nishma. How far are you away from that? Are you a light onto the nation? Or are you a carbon copy of a Gentile that's living next door to you, or is working in the desk right next to you? We've become so assimilated. We've become so close to what the Gentiles are, where we lost out on the mission that Hashem sent us out to. And in the process, we have now come to a point in civilization where we have friends who are enemies, or friends that are enemies, frenemies. But you don't have to worry about that. Hashem will take care of all of that. Lo yanum velo yishanshe. Shomer Yisrael. Hashem is going to protect us. Just like He protected us from the Meraglim. I'm sorry, not the Meraglim. The Erev Rav. They got killed in the desert. Just how He saved us from the Meraglim. They died in the desert. Just how He saved us from Korach Va'adato. They all got swallowed in the ground. Just how He protected us from the bad news or the bad reports of the spies who were able to convince all of Am Yisrael. 10 people were able to convince 600,000 of Am Yisrael from the age of 20 to 60, and that's why we were stuck in the desert for 40 years until that generation died. They were very influential. They were able to convince. They ended up dying as well. Hashem will protect us from evil nations that want to team up against us. Hashem will protect us from nations that are right there trying to kill us, and He's saving us without us even knowing. Lo yanum velo yishan shomer Yisrael. Hashem will take care of all that. As long as you take care of the relationship with Hashem. As long as you do your work to get closer to the original formula of the Jew. Unity, faith, trust, happiness, being a light unto the nations. We said in the time of Mashiach, all the rabbis have all told us throughout history, you need emunah, which is faith. You need bitachon, which is a stronger level, a trust. It's a high level of emunah. You need to perform the Torah out of happiness. You have to have simcha. You have to have unity, achdut. You have to live inside your skin as a happy Jew. And as long as you take care of the relationship with Hashem, Hashem will take care of all of our enemies. Tonight's lesson was to highlight how much craziness is out there. How many people are against the Jewish people? How many tactics of people, of different types of people, how many hidden agendas are out there in the world and are so evident today in this day and age from the current events that are out there? And we see, just like we said in the Haggadah, Shebechol dor vador kamim alenu lechalotenu. Every single generation rise up a group of people that want to kill us and annihilate us. And the end of that is V'Kadosh Baruch Hu matzilenu mi'adam. Kadosh Baruch Hu saves us from their hands. So in other words, we know the whole story. We know the beginning, we know the middle, and we know the end. The beginning is that there's always going to be an enemy. The middle, they're always going to want to try to kill us. At the end, Hashem is going to save us. But there's a catch. Hashem will save us when we merit it, when we are connected. You have to connect to Hashem. You have to connect to the Torah. You have to connect to the ways of the Jewish people. And you merit to that. So have no fear. We have tons of friends and we have tons of foes. They will not hurt us. And the reason why they won't hurt us is because we have our faith and trust in God. So the time now is to sit down with yourself and say, how close am I to the original formula of a Jew? And the further you are, that's your starting point of the work that needs to be done during these times. Turn off the news, turn off social media, and start developing a relationship with the Kadosh Baruch Hu. Hashem varech otchem, v'sameach otchem. I know that the subject matter was a little bit heavy, but it's necessary to speak about it. It's necessary to learn about it. It's necessary to understand that there's nothing new under the sun. Everything that's on the news today was happening in the desert. We saw what they did wrong. We know what's the right thing to do. We know the beginning. We know the middle. We know the end. This is just education is the best thing that you can give yourself. Knowledge is the best tool that you can have in order to be successful in life. I'm going to unmute everyone. If anyone has a question, if not, we will end up signing off. Okay, let's see. Okay, any questions? No? So thank you, Anna. Let's see who else is there. Clive, Yehuda, Abe from Canada. Thank you so much for tuning in. Henshi.
Sharone, listen, this first of all, I was in New York you were talking all about it, and everything you say so resonates. I had a wedding, I missed your last class, but I watched it online. Everything you're saying is so on point. It's giving me chills the whole time. And how you're tying it into the parsha. And I don't know, Becky's not here, but she kept raving about you. She kept saying, I can't believe it. Because I told her to come with me when you're live. And she's like, I can't, because I don't want to leave my husband. I said, I can't watch this class with you. Because it just, it's not the same. Meaning it's so much better when we're live, but here you get to reach so many more. And I think you should consider doing that on Zoom when we're back in the Lighthouse, not just Facebook Live, have Zoom. And so you're able
Bezat Hashem, now we're using both platforms. It is really reaching a lot of different people.
Yeah, and I'm so happy that you are. But this whole thing with the Erev Rav and the agenda, I mean, I think it's very clear to everybody. And I just wanted to ask you, do you think it's time to make Aliyah? I've been just thinking about it a lot, and I've been talking to my
Dollar question.
I'm sorry.
No, so here's I can tell you that I'm also considering it, and here's what I'll share my experience. Okay.
Thank you.
I'm not going to tell anybody to do what they do. First of all, the greatest advice that I got about that, it was from Rabbi Yisrael Abergel, and he says, don't come to Israel out of fear. Come to Israel out of happiness. Be excited to come to Israel. Be excited that you're coming to the Holy Land, that you're coming to be around Yerushalayim and all the holiness. Can you come to Israel not out of fear, but out of happiness and love? So that was a great starting point for anybody who's considering it. That's number one. Second advice that he gave, he says, do it, be smart about it. You have to be smart about it. Where are you going to live? Where are you going to work? How are you going to, you can't just like pick up from Brooklyn or pick up from Miami and go, okay, Israel, I'm here. That's total mesirut nefesh. That is like, I don't know how many people in the world have the guts to do something like that. But most people, they need nefesh b'nefesh. They need to maybe go for a vacation, or like a 2-3 month vacation. maybe Airbnb, different communities, spend Shabbatot in different places, different cities, find out what it is, figure it out. But, you have to do it not out of fear, out of love and happiness,
Right.
and you have to do
Not
it
out of desperation. Not out of
with
desperation.
chokhmah. You have to be smart about it.
Right.
The other thing is, I'm actually preparing another class for it from a book called Michtav Me'Eliyahu, and he touches on it over there also. It's very, very interesting. First of all, Mashiach, when he comes, he's got to pick up some people from the Galut, so there are going to be people that are not going to be in Israel. During the time of Ikveta de Mashiach, it's going to be bad everywhere. So it's either you deal with Israel and anti-Semitism that's over there, and the division between Jew and Jew, and all the Erev Rav, all these different nationalities that are now living amongst us over there, and the true Erev Rav is going to be coming out. Mamash, Amalekites that are infiltrated the Jewish world, the Jewish life are going to be over there. So it's either you deal with it internally, plus the whole world wanting to bomb this small little sliver of land in the Middle East. That's one option. Or you could, live in America and deal with the anti-Semitism that's going to be going around, and deal with the difficulties that are going to be around. It's like, it's either or. It's happening both ways. What you have to know is that you just have to weather the storm. You just have to weather the storm. You got to have enough emunah. You got to have enough trust and a good relationship in Hashem that people are going to drop left and right. People are going to be dying to the left and to the right of you, and you're going to be in a protected bubble because you and Hashem have a relationship. You have faith. You follow the Torah. You earned your redemption. You earned your Geulah. And then
we hope.
Well, listen, Teshuvah is magical. You can erase all your sins and be a brand new baby now. It's amazing. You can just, if you just do it. But at the end of the day, it's about having that faith, having that emunah, and saying, I just need to be mentally strong. I got to do my mental push-ups to withstand this 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, whatever that time frame is going to be till everything blows over. Then it's going to deflate a little bit, and then Israel is going to be on the rise. And when Israel begins to be on the rise, you want to be in Israel, because when it says, Amachzir Shechinato LeTzion, what do we say in Amidah? We say, Modim, right? What's Modim? When Hashem comes back to Zion, you want to be there and say, oh, Hashem is here, I bow to him. You don't want to be in Hawaii somewhere. Mashiach will bring us.
On a jet flight with your mask on. Like I was. But I know, like, I come, from Lubavitch and from Holocaust survivors. So we're very triggered. We're very triggered by when we see anti-Semitism all over the world. Like, we start getting, it's really like in our DNA. It's like trauma, because we have, grandparents that were murdered and great-grandparents that were murdered. So right away we start thinking, well, look what's going on in Europe, and it's terrible. My brother lives in Paris. It's very bad. And we've all been talking about, not to go, okay, mass aliyah, but I know that, as far as work, like, I've been already like looking, and over there to see the options that, what kind of options there are there. I'm just worried because of this whole situation here, because, like, I'm feeling it. I'm very sensitive, and I don't feel like it's going to get better here. I feel it's going to get much worse. And so I feel like, I'm not saying that, oh, they're going to be killing Jews in America all over, but you know what? There'll be riot. I was in Crown Heights when they had the Crown Heights riots, and when Yankel Rosenbaum got murdered. I was there then. And you know what? It feels like this. And,
even worse. It's even worse. It's nationally.
Worse.
It's not just a neighborhood in New York, in Crown Heights. It's all over the country. Look, a lot of my friends are telling me, and they're right, and I believe that as well. He says, the Jews in Germany also thought it's going to blow over.
Right.
And it didn't. Also, all the rabbis, all the books, all the heavy-duty rabbis, and when they spoke about the Geulah, they said, just when you think one wave is over, a bigger wave is coming.
Right.
More tzarot, more troubles, and each one worse than the next.
And how are we even going to get to Israel? Like, right now, we can't even get there. And now they're closing down. We can't even get there.
Getting there is not going to be the problem. But if you remember, in previous lessons, we said something like this.
That's right.
Hashem is going to create tactics.
Oh, yeah. For sure.
In order to pick up a new group of Jews to do teshuvah.
Right.
So, for example, for the ones that it's very reminiscent of the Holocaust, he's just scooping up those group,
Right.
that group, and saying, okay, my sons and daughters, do teshuvah because you're scared like the Holocaust. The next wave is going to be for something else. Maybe the next wave is when there's the financial collapse. Oh, there's going to be a new group of here's my sons and daughters that it took a financial collapse for them to come back. There's all these tactics that Hashem is using to bring us all back. Eventually, if you feel safe in Israel, it's our land, it's our homeland. Anybody who merits to go over there and start fresh, we eventually are all going to be there. It's just a matter of time and how to do it. But the thing is to do it smart.
Okay, thank you. I really appreciate you. I just feel like it's just, we're in that smart. I know you feel the same way like this. That's why you're doing this. It's just like this momentum that's coming.
We're getting our passports. We're filling out applications.
Yeah.
We would like to go to Israel for maybe like 2-3 months and start, looking at it, speaking to people and see what we could do over there. We're not so much worried about the parnasah, because we know parnasah is mishamayim.
Exactly.
Not worried about where the dollar is going to come from, or the shekel.
And the shefa, it's a better place to receive the money.
Yeah, it's not the money part, even though that you do need
shefa,
money
the blessing.
there. It's more about where is the right place that the wife and the children can transition properly into that society, because Israel, it's you don't know where to go. I mean, I have some family in Israel, but we don't know where to go, which city, where are all the Americans that are now.
You can't afford Yerushalayim or Tel Aviv, so you have to go somewhere else. It's so expensive. I mean, I'm looking into it, so I not to meet whatever, but from my sister, like I have friends that are brokers. I'm doing my due diligence a lot, because I feel like, and I always thought my kids would be the ones that, because they were gonna, but they'll go, but it's like a goal, and we always had that goal, but the goal has to be pushed up, I feel, because of the situation. I want to be amongst my family, my Jewish family.
That's the biggest thing. So here, the flip side of that, there's people that are ready to go to Israel now, but they have aging parents that are not ready.
Right.
They have people that have medical issues, and the hospital medical care is only available in their city or their town, and in Israel they don't have that, or they don't have the financing or the insurance or whatever it is. It gets very complicated.
Yes.
A lot of people have a lot of different things pulling them back from doing it. But at the end of the day, a friend of mine told me a very good thing. He says, "Look, you can tell me anything that you want. The minute that I hear 'but,' that's the
exactly.
He said, all I can tell you is that I want to protect my children and make sure that they're alive. I am concerned about being alive tomorrow." So he's in that mindset already.
Right.
See, Hashem is constant. There's different people in different stages, but Aliyah is definitely something that every Jew's talking about. I actually mentioned it in the previous class. There's 2 things that people are talking about. Do we move to Israel?
Guns and Aliyah.
We buy a gun.
Yeah.
Do we buy a gun, or do we move to Israel, or both?
Right. Well, it's not scary, because when you have Amunah, you don't have fear. You really don't. It's normal to be sometimes anxious. You don't have fear, because everything works out. But I see people, my friends, falling apart, and maybe because I've had a rough life. I mean, not that I'm so used to this. Like, to me, like, I'm used to like living yom, figuring out what to do. You have your haters, you have your this, there's always something, and then you know how to deal with it. So like, for me, it's very difficult, because when I have to deal with Jews who really are not knowledgeable, and they're very to the left, and they start arguing with me, and I don't want to tell them, and I don't want to get them angry. And I bring a lot of your words, whatever I learn and whatever I glean for myself, and I always said, the Lubavitcher Rebbe said that the most safest place in the world will always be Israel. It will be the safest place in the world.
100%.
And you should never, even if people think they're going to be, there's bombs, there's terrorists, it's still the safest place in the world.
It's going to be bombs and terrorists everywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, they're in the streets.
There are already.
They're in the streets. You got terrorists in the streets.
You should see in New York, when I was driving, you have no idea what's going on there. Brooklyn, you can't.
The war zone.
And you know what? I'm older than you. And I remember when I was a little girl in the 70s, how it was that my chain got ripped off every 5 minutes. And I used to have to go home from school in a cop car, because we went to school near Erasmus. this is exactly deja vu what's going on in New York. It's like 1976 or whatever. And it's so bad. And it's when you go there, it's not the New York we knew.
All
And
my friends are telling me that. Everyone's
yeah,
telling me.
I mean, I don't know who here is from New York, but it's literally like going into an alternate universe and not a good one. You know, it's, and like you say, it has to do with the Parsha. And I feel that, you know, they'll take any agenda and use it against the Jews and use those blood libels against us. And right now with the annexation, you know what? It's the best thing right now because you know why? Everybody hates Israel now anyway, so they might as well do what they got to do because doing everything else is not. And the Rebbe said that too. He said it to Netanyahu. You cannot give an inch because it's not going to help. It's just going to make it worse. And they didn't listen, you know. And that's how it is. So
These are tough times. These are tough times. I keep saying it. The best life tool that you can get right now that you need to put onto your tool belt is the tool life tool of emunah. You have to develop your emunah. You have to believe, you know, your emunah muscle that everything for the best. This is what Hashem wants. There's no mistake. You have to have this emunah and trust. Otherwise, you won't be able to weather this Geulah storm. You're going to be very weak, and your mind is going to be, consumed by news and social media.
You don't understand.
You won't have any time to be spiritual. You won't have any time to think about God, pray to God, learn Torah, because the current events are going to consume your brain.
I literally had to go see 2 people in psych wards that broke down from all this. They'll be okay, but they broke down from and I'm like, I understand it, but that's what it is, trauma. Everybody's going through universal trauma, and it's how we deal with it. I deal with it by listening to you, you know, and studying, and really, and keeping busy, and with my grandchildren, and I can't think about it. And trust me, they know a lot, and they're smarter than we are, you know, they really are. And they have tremendous emunah. And one of my granddaughters, her name is Emunah, and she always says to me, Bobby, you have to be happy with what you have because you have to only depend on Hashem and nobody else. I said, you're right.
Words of wisdom.
So I said, you know what? I learned from the kids more than anything else and from you. And I think that it's something that we all really, and not because, like you say, run away, but I don't want to be in a den of enemies anymore. You know, I don't want to be where I feel like everybody hates me because I'm a Jew. And that's how I feel. You know?
I think everybody should definitely start exploring the how, where, why, you know, start finding out like what's the details, what's going on, certain communities, you have to find out because eventually, you know, you don't know what's going to be here, what's going to be anywhere, but eventually, you know, we need to be in Israel. And even if we're not going to be in Israel in the time of Mashiach, I even saw different places that say that Israel is going to be very, very, very dangerous. That is a matter of fact that I heard it, I read it in a commentary for Shir HaShirim. The 8th chapter of Shir HaShirim over there talks all about the end of days. And one of the Pesukim over there, I'll try to share it on one of the next lessons that we do. It says one of the Pesukim, it says over there that, that my beautiful Israel, wait for me in the diaspora while I finish all the wars in Israel, and I'll come and get you. I was like very calm, very soothing to see that from Shir HaShirim as a commentary. But you know, there's so much going on. Many rabbis are saying immediately drop everything, come to Israel. A lot of rabbis are saying, you can't. There's a lot of Jews that need to come back to Hashem, and you need to be around to help Jews come back to Hashem. You got to help out all the other Jews that are out over here. And then there's a lot of people that are saying, slow and steady. Some people are doing it really fast. You got to figure out where you fall into it. You know, I myself, we started looking into information of moving into it just to find out, what are the details. But I have a lot of people that are just on standby. They're, as soon as the flights open up or if they're ready to go through the quarantine, they're out.
Yeah. No, yeah, I understand. I understand that completely. And I think that besides us having to do tshuva, I think it's just so important for all of us to like you said, the achdut. And I don't know how I always try to create it amongst what I'm around, but it's just so difficult because it's not there. And how,
Because you have it, but the other person doesn't, so it doesn't work when you
what
try.
did you say?
I said, I know that the people that are really in tune into Achdut, they're out there like, yeah, let's unite. And no matter, let's love one another. Let's be united. It doesn't matter who you are, what you are. Let's just be united. But the other one is not on that mindset. The other Jew is not in that
Takes
mindset.
two to tango.
Yeah, so it's very difficult. That's why you got to spread the word to your family, to your friends, the people that are around you. You're not here to save the world. Just have influence on the people that are around you. It's enough. And eventually that's what's going to...
Right. You save the world one person at a time, like you're doing now. It's like when I teach, or when I got a letter from the Rebbe saying that I'm supposed to spread Hasidus even all over, and even if it's to one person.
Exactly.
So so it was pretty, it was a pretty straightforward letter. Like usually you write in and you don't get the exact answer, and I got my answer. But the thing is that because to be connected to the upper worlds, you have to, that's very, very important when you're teaching. I don't know if you didn't notice, and I'm sorry if I'm boring anybody there, but I know, Sharone, you teach, right? And I realized when I started teaching a lot, and especially like trying to teach Torah and give it over to other people, I'm growing so much more exponentially because of it, because it becomes me. Like the Torah becomes me, and I'm a vessel, and I'm empty, and it just flows through me, and it's the most satisfying feeling in the entire world, and that having an effect on someone and it's amazing, really.
When you teach, or when you obligate yourself to teach, and you force yourself to, let's say you have a class every single day, 5 days a week, you really, really, really get an upgrade as a teacher, and in return, is for yourself. I know that the more classes that I do, the more I learn, the more connected I stay. Sometimes it's like it says, Mayim enbo, nachashim va'akavim yeshbo. They say when they threw Yosef into the pit, there was no water there. There was snakes and crabs. And the rabbis tell us, the pit, what's the pit? The mind. Mayim enbo, when there's no water, when there's no Torah.
In Mayim, in Torah.
Scorpions. That's why the more you teach, the more water is in there, the more you get elevated. I can speak for myself that the biggest peaks that I have in my spirituality is when I teach more than 3 times a week.
You're in the zone. You're in the zone. You're in that zone where time stands still. You don't even know what's going on. It's called like literally like athletes are in that zone, and you are in that zone, and it's an amazing feeling. You could do whatever you do from wherever you are. So I don't, I'm saying in general. I mean, you would do really well doing this there. I mean, you can do it from anywhere. But
we should open up a Lighthouse community, and everybody on this Zoom.
I'm serious. I'm ready. I think let me tell you something. It's the best thing that happened to me in a long time. It really, really, really is. And I've always loved to learn, but especially this is more because like, you're like me, you are very as important as a big rabbi, but you're not like this big rabbi with the long beard, like what I grew up with, going on and whatever. And not that makes a difference, but meaning you're able to show that you're a regular person who is so knowledgeable, and it's so important, especially these times. And we don't really have big leadership like we used to have in the Frum Jewish community any longer. Like, we really don't.
I know not a lot of people stepping up. Not in the Ashkenazi community or Sephardi community.
No, and it's a problem because we need leaders. In Melech B'Yisrael, you know what happens? It becomes chaos, and we need a leader to be behind. And I'm a Lubavitcher, but I'm not a Mashiachist. I knew the Rebbe. I was very close to him, and he was able to unite people. And, he was able to do it. And he it wasn't that he was against Aliyah. He was a very strong Zionist. But he said, if you travel to Israel more than a week, you are obligated to live there. So,
really?
Yeah. That's why he said he never went there, because he was the Rebbe.
Wow.
And he said, if you go for more than 14 days, or not 14 days, more than a week, like over like 8 or like a little bit over a week, I'm not sure exactly, it might be 8 or 9 days, you are obligated to live there.
I can tell you this much: Israel is beautiful. I was
I
there
know.
last year to bury my dad, and I can tell you, there's everything. If you like the city life, they got the city life. You like the beach life, they got the beach life. You want suburbia, you want to live on a farm, you want to live in a commune. They got it all,
Right.
and they're
Right.
very modern. They're very European. Yeah, I mean, it's not going to be such a hard transition, you know.
No, not
Just
like.
that people don't like to get out of their comfort zone.
Yeah, no, especially when I used to go to Israel, I was staying in the King David presidential suite. So I was pretty good in those days. So that wasn't the real world, but I wasn't in a moshav, but I know I have cousins at moshav, I have cousins everywhere, and they're I think the simpler your life is, I mean, there's luxury there, but I think being part of a community, like a lot of people on Ramat Beit Shemesh is huge, all the Americans. Well, Renan is an older crowd, but it's also expensive. But then you have these regular communities there that I was looking into that are pretty cool. These like suburban communities, like they're like, I forgot which one it was. Anyway, I won't bother you. But anyway.
So my sister is seriously considering moving to Israel. She took care of all the paperwork. They actually bought tickets. They're ready to go like in November, and she has a lot of research on it. And there's actually a group of Americans, or not a group, a couple, a family that moved to Israel from LA.
Right.
And what they did is every single week they went to a different community and they filmed it. They have a channel on YouTube where you actually
wow, it's great.
you go from community to community and they show you the streets, the stores, the people, the synagogues. It's really, really cool. It's like almost every episode you feel like you've visited the community.
Wow.
I'll try to get it for my sister to see what it is, and I'll share it with you guys on the next lesson.
Okay. Anyway, thanks, Sharone, and I love you.
Thank you
so much for everything.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
All right, guys. If there's no more questions, have a good one.
Okay.
Okay. Bye bye.